Welcome everyone back to the V Book Club. This is a brand new podcast from the makers of V Magazine and V Speaks podcast, hosted by Lisa Burwell. I'm Jordan Staggs, the editor of V, and I'm here today with Kristy and Ali, who started the Emerald Coast Storytellers, which is a fantastic organization along the South Walton, Emerald Coast area of Florida. They have just partnered with so many writers in the area, publishers, authors, just to get people out there telling their stories, writing, and just all around being creative. So welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Jordan. I mean, what an entrance. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
We've been so lucky to attend so many of your events over the past about 15 months that you've been having them. Tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Well, do we start at Chiringo where we first met, or do we start at our first open mic?
I would say Chiringo.
Yeah, I would think so too. Yes. So it's funny because Kristy and I moved down here about 4 years ago. Kristy, you've been down here since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first moved down here, I remember, and this is just from my perspective, and I'll let Kristy jump in with probably her side of the story because it's probably a lot more, clear-headed, clear-sided. But I remember moving down here and just starting to get to know everybody and starting to just kind of figure out the lay of the land. And what I kept hearing and kept meeting people is that you needed to meet Kristy. Kristy Gustafson at the time. And I remember, being like, Kristy, she's another writer. You should probably get connected to her. And I remember looking up her Instagram. And in her Instagram, she had
gotten into her DMs.
I know. This is why I was like, I need to tell my side of the story because Kristy's side is probably get me out of here. It's just Stockholm Syndrome.
Look, that's how we meet people, okay?
So I remember looking her up and seeing the first chapter of her novel that she had published on kind of one of those online forums, and she had put the first chapter in her Instagram bio. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading it and just falling absolutely in love with her writing. And we ended up both being at just a friend's birthday party in the upstairs of Chiringo 2-3 years ago. And I just, 2 tequila sodas deep, probably just one tequila soda deep, walked up to Kristy and I was like, hey, I just want you to know I love your writing. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I don't know who you are. Get away from me. Yeah, quite literally. And then kind of ever since then, we had a writers group, and then the open mics kind of started from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we pretty much started from there as okay, you're a writer, I'm a writer. Did we just become best friends? And it kind of turned into this 2-woman writing group, which always sounds funny, 2-man, 2-woman. Anyways, we were 2 women.
2 women.
Writing together, mostly porch, front porch, back porch, wine involved.
Always.
as one does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Channeling that inner Hemingway. And we kind of just that was probably the most progress we had made on our writing. And then we were like, let's open up the door.
Yeah.
And then our writing fell, but everybody else's no.
Right. It's so funny. We always say this, that we got into this to just keep our writing going. We always said that the open mics are they were supposed to be a monthly validation for our writing. Mm-hmm. We would gather people together.
An audience.
Yes. And neither of us have written since.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm kidding. You've written. Yeah.
How is that book
Neither of us
along?
have written. No, I'm kidding. Just me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, so how did you get to that first open mic night?
It's actually a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to tell the same one I am, but...
Well, how about you tell your version, though? Tell my version.
Yeah, well, one of the writing nights, we were just kind of chatting about, pretty much what did we need and what do we still need kind of along the way of our own writing journeys. Mm-hmm. And it's that sense of community, just writing is such a solitary undertaking, we always say. And, what if we kind of work in everything that you don't just have access to? Even during our writing nights, you have that person to be like, hey, does this sound stupid? Versus being at war for, in your own head for hours on end and having written 10 words. But yeah, that's pretty much how it started. And then, we're like, what if we open the door to, storytelling in general, because whether you're a writer, whether you like claim that yet, we always call it like the closeted writers.
Right.
But yeah, like come tell a story and consider this your stage. And my husband runs the distillery or Distillery 98. So we're like, well, we got the venue and we borrowed a mic and an amp and we kind of, shouted it from the rooftops that is social media and was like half off drinks if you tell a story. And yeah, all of a sudden we had like, we put out a few chairs and which quickly we ran out of. And it was just like, oh, damn, like there's a need for this, it was so cool to see just like the community response to it. And so we're like, okay, I think we like struck a chord here. And the rest is history, as they say.
It's so funny, kind of going off of what Kristy said about, our initial marketing was just through Instagram. Instagram and Facebook and other, assorted social media, because we still get, how you get like the memories on Instagram where it's a year ago you were doing this. And around our 1-year anniversary with Emerald Coast Theater Company, so back in July, we were getting memories of us on Instagram being like, hey guys, if we did a storytelling open mic thing, would anybody come? Or I mean, we said it like, we said it more like, hey, we're thinking of starting this like open mic storytelling event. Like, is anybody interested? And it's really cool to see, how, I mean, we say this all the time, but like we did not expect this level of community interaction. We always say that at the end of the day, like it doesn't, what's truly important is everybody participating in there with us. That's the storytelling. Our organization is made beautiful by, it's the mosaic pieces of everybody's stories being involved. And because at the end of the day, it would just be Kristy and I talking to each other. And while we do that very well, it's so much more interesting that everybody has kind of jumped on board and kind of accepted us as much as they have.
It's been really, really cool just to watch it grow from an outside perspective. And now you're like selling out events and they keep getting bigger and bigger and you're partnering with more people in the community. So how is it, like, what does that feel like when you really think back on like how much it's grown from those Facebook posts?
It is so funny.
Surreal, for sure.
There was one night, I love telling the story, but there was one night we were at Kristy's old house and we were sitting at your kitchen table, living room table. And we had just gone through like the whole planning process for the first open mic. And it was just Kristy and I, and we were like, we don't know what we're doing. Like, we don't know if anybody's going to show up. But I said to her, I was like, I think we have something. And because we were
sobbing.
Yes. And because I was 2 glasses of red wine in, I started crying. And I was like, there's nothing else that like, there was, I mean, at the time now, I feel like there's a lot of artistic and creative endeavors that are popping up kind of around like what the both of us are doing with the Idea Boutique and your book club and like kind of with our storytellers, which is, I mean, best case scenario. We want an entire community filled with other storytelling events. But, at the time we were really just kind of like stepping out on our own and kind of like taking a leap of faith because like it's scary. Like you said earlier, it's scary getting up at the mic. And I mean, even when we were at our first event, Kristy and I were standing at the mic and we were like, we did not expect this many people. We literally were like, hey guys, like, thank you so much for joining us. Like, we have no idea what we're doing, but like hang in there because we'll figure it out, But it's a very surreal feeling.
That's like so cool too, because you're very real about it. And I think the audience gets that. Like we know, as someone who's been there and spoken a couple times, and it is scary. It's seeing you get up there and you're just like, hey, we're just figuring this out. Like it's going to be great, but hang in there sometimes, things happen. Like it's real and it's authentic. And that's like something that you are putting out to the whole audience that's in there too. So, and just encouraging people to be real when they get up there.
Yeah. I think that's like what makes it so special. It's, I've said it before, but just like so much of writing is like pulling your raw beating heart out of your chest and being like, here, world, like,
do you like it?
I hope you like it. And,
thank you.
You know, there's that's like, it takes guts to stand, you know, up at the mic. And, you know, once we kind of saw that people were getting just as much out of it, if not more than us, like that's when that shift happened. Like, okay, this is cool. Like, you know, everything you guys are doing, it's like when you provide that stage and like, you know, people are, or that vehicle, you know, it's just so cool to see where people go from there. So
Are you surprised by, like, when you started this, what kind of stories did you expect people to get up and tell? Like, are you surprised by the variety that there has been?
It's hard because we didn't, I mean, when I tell you, we did not have a basis for expectation. Like, we are just so blown away and so honored by not only, like, the level of community interaction, but just, like, the vulnerability that people show, the genuine authenticity of the stories and them showing up month after month. I mean, we did not expect it is kind of the best way to put it.
I still remember, like, we were talking before the first one, like, should we put, like, parameters? Like, please don't say anything offensive and this and this and this.
I know,
like,
I've kind of wondered about that.
Like, you know, we've had people send us our stuff just so we could kind of somewhat, like, quality control and, you know, all that. But, I mean, it's been really cool to see just the diversity because, you know, there's poets, there's artists turned writers, there's people that, you know, like I said, don't even consider themselves writers. And actually one of my favorite stories we had, I think it was last summer, we had an event we hosted with Sowell House in Rosemary. And there was a guy that was like, oh, this is a poem that, you know, I started 25 years ago and I finished it today. And we're like, hell yeah. You know, like the fact that it's lighting that fire for people. And yeah, it's just been really, really cool to see. And even just, you know, every event we have, you know, kind of like 10 to a dozen local storytellers. And then we have a featured storyteller, whether they're local, beyond, who's published or kind of a, you know, I guess like.
Just we always say is like a professional within the creative publishing, creative type industries, like somebody who's a seasoned industry member who can share with us a glimpse into their creative journey.
Right.
So that's everybody from, I mean, we've had, you know, music producers, people who've worked with Rihanna, Cardi B, Beyonce, which is incredible. I mean, having him go up and talk about, you know, what has inspired him and the fact that he took time out of his schedule to be with us. I mean, it just feels very surreal is the word for it.
Yeah, and so surreal that we have those people who live here and are locals in our community and just so many creative professionals in this area, which I think like people flock here for some reason. And then it also, once they're here, like cultivates that. And so that's something that I feel like you're playing off of as well, like whether it's conscious or not, it's just
we've talked
inspiring
about
to be here.
There's something about, you know, that kind of like small sleepy beach town where it's just this like blank canvas of dreams. And you're like, you know, once you kind of fall in love with the place and kind of get your 2 feet on the ground, it's like, okay, how can I make my mark on this beautiful place? And so, yeah, it's just so cool to see what comes up from the area. And who knew, a ton of writers and storytellers. So it's been really cool to see and have you. I always love your stories.
Thank you.
Yeah, please keep coming back.
I will. I will be there next Friday. So, but one thing too, like just going back on that is, what do you think makes, like, what do you get inspired by when you're writing?
Well, we will have 2 very different answers.
Yes. Yeah, both of you.
Because, and we always joke about this as well. So I primarily write horror. And it's funny because every time I go up to read one of my pieces, I always, you know, say that. I'm like, all right, disclaimer, like if you don't like anything scary, like you're going to hate what comes next. Yeah. But and it's funny because Kristy writes a lot of, I almost want to say like relationship-oriented pieces, either relationship with family or relationship with oneself. Like she's got a debut novel that she's working on that she can, you know, obviously take it away from there. But I don't know what specifically it is with horror. I like to think that it's the fact that you can do anything with it. And it's that you can write about these really heavy topics like grief or loss or anxiety. And you're not writing about it head on. You're able to use, metaphors or, other kind of symbolic figures to step in to work out whatever you're feeling for you. If that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not...
Monster.
Yeah, it's,
whatever
in my case, it's quite literally monsters.
It might be real in the story.
Yeah. It's, you're not dealing with, like, the boogeyman in the closet. It's anxiety and a fear of the dark, which stems from childhood trauma. And there's nothing, I mean, in my opinion, which is, probably, I don't know, not shared by everyone, I guess. There's something beautiful with horror stories because anything can happen, which throws all, rules of reality out the window and really opens you up as a reader or a watcher or anything to learn something new about yourself because of how you're about to react to whatever you're seeing. And obviously, I'm not talking about like the really scary ones like Hostel or Saw, because that is just, that's something else. But it's this idea that real life is the scariest thing that you can experience. Other people can be the scariest thing that you can experience. But we are working it out together.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I read a paper on this.
I'm just kidding.
I'm hearing you say
my
that.
My therapist right now.
Something from college is coming back in my mind, and I'm like, I literally wrote that line in a research paper about supernatural.
Googled you. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
So I get you.
Yeah.
And, like Stephen King, like you're saying, it's the same like vein of using these things to represent other things. So
it's like Frankenstein, right? You're not reading about the monster that's stitched together from the pieces of 1,000 different other people, which is, as I say it out loud, that's horror. But you're writing about the feeling of, or you're reading about like the feeling of loss and the feeling of not belonging. And we can phone a friend, me get my therapist on the line. No, I'm just kidding.
That'll be the next episode.
Yeah, stay tuned. We're just gonna, take questions from the audience.
We'll do that one on your podcast.
Anyway, I love writing horror. So it's a very long answer.
No, it's so interesting. And we're going into October, so I'm excited to.
Oh my God, how timely!
What's coming up for you on that vein? But Kristy, tell us about your book a little, if you want to.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear this.
It's one of those like questions at the beginning. I was like, people are like, "What's your book about?" And in your head, you're like, "Oh shit!" Like, what's my elevator pitch? Yeah. But thankfully, I've had years to prepare. But it's now pressure's on. It's called Just Passing Through, and it has actually been years in the making. The first chapter that Ali talked about from 2 years ago is still from this book. Yeah. But I don't know. I actually heard a quote today that it's kind of like, how do you write a story that you're still living? Because I think in a lot of ways it's a girl after my own heart. It's my younger self, but it's instead of like a midlife crisis, she hits a quarter life crisis, quits her job, buys a one-way train ticket, and is kind of dealing with different losses in her life. And she meets kind of this old timer on the train who's, seems like that wise person that knows all the answers and turns out as lost as she is. So it's kind of this unlikely friendship that takes hold. And
I love that.
You'll have to read it. I'll have to write it. And then
she's like, click here. Yeah. Pre-order sales now. Yeah.
I think when I took the mic at the Emerald Coast Storytellers, I think that was back in May. I was like, one of my hobbies is starting novels.
I love that line. I was like, I'm going to steal
that. I have started many. I have yet to finish one, but we're working on it. So, it'll happen when it happens.
Listen.
And we'll be very excited to read it when it's ready.
Yeah. There is nothing more that makes you a writer than having an unfinished piece in your Google Docs or whatever. Agreed. That is just
flooding.
That is just hanging over your head, waiting for you to finish it.
So what do you have coming up this year? Tell us a little bit about the November event, because that's going to be like a big one and a little bit different.
Yeah. So that one is, I believe, our third story pairing dinner.
Yes, ma'am.
So we started these kind of as a spin-off of the open mic nights, just, our love of food and stories and, kind of bringing people together. We're like, okay, besides telling stories, breaking bread. So we came up with this story pairing concept, kind of like a wine dinner, but with stories sprinkled throughout. And we've been in the works with the Henderson and then Children's Volunteer Health Network. So they just amazing local organization. Lisa's on the board.
Yeah.
So you're very familiar.
Yeah, we love CVHN.
Yeah. So they, just, children in need throughout Walton and Okaloosa counties. And so it kind of like by total accident, which has been a lot of what we've done with storytellers, just a very serendipitous partnership. So it's going to be benefiting CVHN and at the Henderson Resort in Destin, which is just gorgeous in all the ways. And we're excited. It's going to be a fabulous coursed dinner and stories sprinkled throughout.
Yeah.
Featuring you as well. I'm so excited.
Kristy has this great line so the story pairing dinners are the first of its kind.
Yeah.
Right? And as Kristy likes to say, she Googled it. So, and she didn't see anything.
So it must be true.
I was like,
Must be true.
Exist?
The internet never lies, except when it does.
Except when it does.
But the story pairing dinners are a really exciting concept that we're sort of building out on. Like Kristy said, it's the third one. The first one was with Hotel FE. Second one was in Nashville, which with a private chef and with a kind of boutique marketing agency that who the owner of which Kristy's really good friends with. And the story pairing dinners are kind of this twist on a multi-course dinner, but instead of, like Kristy said, instead of like a wine pairing, we're introducing stories in between each course. And then it usually, and then it ends with a featured storyteller. So, somebody significant in their, whatever their industry is. And we're really excited about November's featured storyteller.
Yeah.
So I know you do a theme for each
I was
month.
actually just about to
Yeah,
say,
for each open mic night. So
Yes.
the theme for November.
So we're kind of playing into the CVHN, kind of the youth work that they do. So it's going to be letters to our younger selves.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, really cool.
Leaning into, that nostalgia and they, CVHN is doing a lot of work around mental health and wellness. So I think it'll be, I'm just so excited to see, speaking of that, that vulnerable piece and, nothing like writing a letter to your younger self that, really pulls at the heartstrings. And so we're super excited to see and listen to the stories that come about.
Yeah.
Did your younger self ever think you would be doing this?
So yes. So not this specifically, but I feel like everybody who's a writer has been writing since they were kids.
Oh yeah.
Like, I've got art projects from when I was a kid of that were like stories that I wrote about cats. Like you're very true to
construction.
I know,
books
to nobody's surprise, it was about a cat. But I feel like you're very true to who you are as a child, and then when you get to this point of your life, it's like you start calling back on all of those attributes that made you who you were before, high school, middle school got in the way. But yeah, I was on the freaking middle school literary club, like president. Like,
on my first podcast that I did on V Speaks with Lisa in season 1. I recited a poem that I wrote when I was 10, and it was about spaghetti.
There you go.
And it was the first thing that I ever had published. It was in like the kids page of the newspaper, and that was the moment that I knew.
You need to
I was
read
like,
that.
That's it. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So it's. I think we start young.
Yeah.
And then so you both. This is not the only thing that you're doing. So I mean, you've got a lot of other things going on in the community with your own like jobs and marketing and other events. So. Tell us, like, how does that tie in?
So it's actually funny because Kristy and I couldn't possibly spend more time together. So I work at Distillery 98 with Harrison, with Kristy. I run the events for Distillery 98. And I am also kind of running point on a lot of the outreach efforts for Half Shell Vodka, which is it is the first U.S. spirit served in a cardboard bottle. I'm like, here's my spiel.
Yeah.
But it's like 94% recyclable. It comes in a really pretty blue case. And it's a lot of really exciting things are happening with Half Shell. I've actually got a call after this that I'm super jazzed about. But we are starting to do a lot of outreach stuff throughout Florida.
Very cool.
For Half Shell Vodka.
Yeah.
So I just run events constantly, but I love that.
But that's storytelling too.
Yes.
So
Yes,
it really
is.
does like all tie
Yeah.
in.
There's a theme.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I'm more the marketing side of it. So I feel like, having that love for writing growing up, often manifests in, the quote unquote real job version is marketing. So telling other people's stories. But yeah, so different, kind of have had different clients throughout 30A and, back in Colorado where I moved down from. But a little distillery. And then I help out with Longleaf Writers Conference. So I'm on the board with them. And that was a huge inspiration for us too. Just, bringing, writers and creatives together and, they're every second week of May. And, there was this point where, they packed up and, they pack up and leave. And I'm like, well, now what? Like there's still writers and keeping that inspiration going. So, so that's a big pull, but yeah. And then I can't even, and then struggling to write my novel. Yeah. And now,
and being a new mom
and new motherhood. So yes, even more.
That's a full-time job. Yeah.
Yes.
You brought the littlest storyteller to the last open mic night. It was so cute. It
was our intern.
Yeah. At one point I had to like leave and watch the live stream while I was feeding her in the backseat of the car. And then she fell asleep. And then that was, the end kind of exit speech. Had her sleeping on my chest. I'm like, hey, got my prop.
That was so cute.
We'll see if she, we joke that she's our future intern.
Yeah.
Got to start paying her dues. But
it's hard. Job is hard. Yeah.
I feel like most of the time she's like sitting in a bouncer and I'm like reading, writing. So I feel like, by second degree.
Well, so tell us a little more about anything you have coming up, like new initiatives or any goals for 2024. No pressure.
Well, I'm like, oh God, this is when the notes would be helpful. It's so funny.
List.
We have this we call it the list, but it's truly like a Google Docs list of all of the things that we have to do. And when coffee isn't like, hitting enough and I need anxiety to get me through like the rest of the day, I like to open up the list and just take a look at everything that we still have to do.
But
I know, right? That's an analogy for something. That's a metaphor for sure.
Just get up at the next one and read the list. Yeah. And everyone will be like,
it actually, I mean,
spoken word piece.
For perspective aside, it is like a list of dreams and things we're excited for. It's just a matter of like, okay, there's only two of us. So how do we, tackle it one by one? But one thing I'm super excited for is I don't want to put a date to it because it's still, I guess we're going to roll with the punches on it, but
go for it.
Publish a literary journal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So have just the different writers that have read for us and featured storytellers and, give love back to the venues that we've worked with and various sponsors and just all have it in this, tangible thing. So I think that's going to be.
That's really exciting.
Be really cool, kind of like, I don't know, coffee table situation. But yeah.
Our slogan is like, it's tell your story. I can't remember tell your story. Consider this your stage. I know, right? I stare at it so much and I'm nervous. But anyway, we consider our platform to be kind of the launching point for people's writing careers. I mean, you saw that with Jordan Crowder at the last open mic night. He even acknowledged it when he got up there and took the mic and he was our featured storyteller, that he took inspiration from the writing nights and the open mic nights to complete his first novel. And we want to be that for everybody. I
had chills when he said that. He's
that's
amazing. I wouldn't have written this book without Emerald Coast Storytellers. I was like, whoa, you're like, wow, what the hell am I doing?
Like, did we get that on camera? But we want to kind of do what we're doing right now, but like take it a step further, whether it's providing, more writing nights or more open mic nights like in Destin or Panama City Beach, or working with, different types of organizations. Like we want to not only broaden the scope of what we're doing, but kind of solidify the base in which people are able to like leap from. Like we want
like an incubator in a lot of ways, like, editors, agents, having this kind of network that, you want to publish a book? Like, here are the stepping stones. And
And we already have people reaching out to us that are like, hey, do you know how to find a publisher? Do you know how to find an editor? And it's like at a certain point, we want to say, yes, here they are. Here's
we
the
can
book.
help you out with that too.
Yes, I know. Exactly. I'm like, we know both of those
We
things. Yeah.
published many, many books so far, and
the editor.
our first novel this year. So that was exciting.
So Susie is actually going to be our featured storyteller in February.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
Susie
full
Acola
circle.
just published her first novel this summer, and it's called Janie Blue. So we'll be excited to hear her talk about that in February.
I told her after I finish all my parenting books, that's next on my list. But I can't wait to read it.
So before we wrap up here, I want to ask you both, what is your favorite book? Something I'm like, I want to ask everyone on the podcast.
Day.
Yeah, it's okay if it's
I'm like the one that I'm willing to admit to, and I'm just kidding.
no, the other one.
Yeah, you're like the fun one. Yeah. It's so funny because I was just talking to a friend about this the other day that I feel like
buying time.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm about to context. Yeah. That reading has become, well, I don't know. I mean, in my eyes, a part of it has become performative because you see a lot of like the book talk or the Instagram, bookstagram, and it's people sharing what they're reading.
Right.
And a lot of the times it's, you want people to view you a certain way with your literary choices or your, movie choices or something like that, because what you're reading, I feel like, can reflect a lot on you. Not to put pressure on myself for what I'm about to say, but I love like books that you can turn your brain off to.
Yeah. It's entertainment.
Trashy
Yeah,
books.
I'm
love
working my
them.
way through a Court of Thorns and Roses series. Like, no,
Is that what you're gonna say?
Okay, so I'm not going to admit when I'm reading, but I will say it's in that vein.
Yeah.
But it's like worse.
It's a
I will
safe
tell you what it
space,
is.
Yeah, tell me later.
It is not.
It's a safe space.
We are
We're
putting
in the
this on
fishbowl.
Instagram, yes.
what did you find on Wattpad?
I'm not telling you on record, no, but I'm reading that, and and I'm reading Big Magic right now too,
Okay.
which is such a classic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I finally got her to
She
read.
made.
Oh, okay.
We went to, when we were in Nashville. We went to Parnassus Books, which is Ann Patchett's bookstore, and it was magical. Kristy can tell you the experience that she had, and it was like this freaking amazing experience. But Kristy was like, "You're buying Big Magic. It is high time that you read Big Magic." And I read it, and I was 10 pages in, and I was like, I get it.
I understand.
I was like, I'm sorry, Kristy. Yeah.
I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of mine. I was going to say
There you
Big
go.
Magic.
Who's the author on that one?
Elizabeth Gilbert.
Okay.
Who's
Yes.
one of my favorites too. But yeah, her, and then Untamed by Glennon Doyle, another favorite. It's all these like creative, I would say like I'm naming all the books that have stuck with me the most.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even naming novels, but because I think there's too many to name. But the other one is that I'm currently reading is The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. I have this notes app that is just like I have to pause it, and then I do like the speak to talk or whatever, or speak to type, and it's just filled with all of these incredible quotes from him. Gosh, but I feel like I need to say a novel too.
No, I mean, you don't have to.
I know.
That's
Just
we're all
trashy
great.
romance novels.
I mean, we bonded over Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yes.
I thought that was amazing.
That was definitely one of my favorites from the last year that
I think
I've
that
read.
was the fastest I've ever read a book.
I listened to that one, so I don't usually
that's on my
listen.
list.
Like I don't
And
usually
they
do
have, like, the different
audiobooks.
actors.
But yeah, it was really cool the way they did it because it was all interview style,
Yeah.
and it was more like listening to a documentary than a novel. And then the the TV
I
series
was
was
just
just
saying,
great. So,
getting to see that played out. That's definitely that's a dream of mine if I ever finish.
Yeah.
When I finish my
same.
novel. Yes.
When is
All
the
of us.
Netflix adaptation coming out? Yeah.
Well, is there any other news you want to share before we head out of here and go get some wine?
Go get more.
Top us off.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that it's funny. Kristy kind of referenced this earlier, but in the many lists that we have, we had a brainstorm list and we had a goals list. And working with V Magazine was such a bucket list item for us. And not only are we doing this podcast with you now, but, you know, just how involved you guys, the article was, I'm telling you, like that was such a huge bucket
I loved
list
writing
item
it.
for us.
So.
And we loved reading it.
On my table when people walk in, I'm like, oh, by the way, no.
Yeah. You're like, excuse me. Here's your coffee.
Yeah. They're like, what is?
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're like,
That's so sweet of you.
They're like, I don't want to. Yeah. But
no, that was so cool to see. That was,
Well, hopefully just the first of many things to come.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And we look forward to your next open mic night and everything else you have coming up.
Yeah.
All right.
Friday, October 13th.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.